Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is some very fine artwork that we have in front of us from the Fairfield school system. We have artwork from the middle school, the elementaries, and I believe some high school artwork.
Tell where it's going to be.
Oh, yes, the purpose of this, these students have very graciously donated their artwork to the Fairfield Art Association for the purpose of being put in the pediatrics or the children's wing at the hospital. So there's going to be some little people that are going to enjoy this artwork for a long time to come. And it's very generous of these people to let their artwork be used and to give it to us. And we want to really thank them a whole lot for this.
I don't have a name for my picture.
She doesn't have a name for her picture, but it's a wonderful piece of artwork, and especially for this time of year, it's a nurse scarecrow. Yeah. Okay, and you?
Jennifer.
And what's the name of your artwork?
I don't know.
You don't have a name for it. It's very nice. Okay.
Jessica.
And Jessica, how about your artwork? It's a pretty picture of flowers, right?
What schools do they attend?
Oh, yes. Your school?
Lincoln.
And?
Pence.
Okay.
Lockridge.
Okay, now we'll do your name and your school.
I'm Jennifer Smithberg, and I'm from Fairfield High School. And this is my sketchboard.
Okay.
My name is Eric Bradfield, and I'm from Libertyville School.
Uh-huh. Can you tell us about your artwork?
I don't have a name for it.
Okay. But is it your pet? No, an imaginary pet, maybe. Just imaginary one.
And I'm pretending to be Jason Roberts, who's a freshman at Fairfield High School this year. And this is a tempera batik.
And I'm not sure, Judy. Whose do I have?
I believe that's Eric Ross is there.
Okay.
And Eric couldn't be here today because he had to visit his grandparent. He has an ill grandparent in Illinois. And this is Kevin Couch. And Kevin doesn't live here anymore, but this artwork is very special. His mother informed me that he was really happy about this because he spent a lot of time as a small child in a hospital. So it's really special for him.
I think so. Okay, so we have enough pieces of art.
All right,
Okay. We've just presented Eric Bradfield with his certificate. We have Jason Roberts, who's not in attendance. We want to keep that, Judy.
Right.
And then also Eric Ross was unable to be here.
That's true.
Okay. And let's see, Jessica. Oh,
Jessica.
this is Jessica. I'm sorry. Okay, Jessica, thank you for your contribution of artwork to our permanent collection. And Samantha Cruz, thank you for donating your artwork to the hospital's permanent collection. Kevin. Oh, that's right. Kevin had the angel picture, and Kevin lives in Florida now. Jennifer. Oh, this is Jennifer. I'm sorry. We have Jennifer and Jennifer. Jennifer Smithberg. That's you. Okay. Jennifer Smithberg, thank you for your artwork contribution. And Jennifer Pickering. Jennifer's must be going to be the famous name for artists as they grow up. And Jennifer, this is just a beautiful work of art here. Thank you for contributing your artwork to the hospital. And I imagine if any of you would ever like to go see where it is, I imagine if you would stop at the hospital at the front desk, they would let you go and see where your artwork ended up. Okay? So again, thank you on behalf of the Fairfield Art Association for coming today. And thank you for contributing your artwork. And we really appreciate it a lot.
Can we go now?
You can go.
Hi, I'm Mark Schaefer at the Fairfield Arts Center, and we're here for the opening of Lennis Moore's exhibit of drawings and prints. And we have Mr. Moore with us at this time, and his mute, very mute model for a series of drawings we had back here. We promised Isaiah Meek that he wouldn't have to talk on camera, but I thought it would be really nice to be able to see the model and the product of Lennis's work. So I won't talk too much more, I'll promise. So take it away.
Well,
What can you tell us about yourself?
Well, it's really nice to be here and show at the Fairfield Art Center. I've been a printmaker and an illustrator for probably over 25 years, and I came to the southeast Iowa area when I came to work at Midwest Old Threshers in Mount Pleasant.
Okay.
And I've been the administrator there since 1978 and maintain a printmaking and drawing studio in my home. And over the last several years have, in addition to doing Native American subjects and landscapes and the usual illustrations that I've done, have started doing a little more portrait work. And as I have done these, occasionally there will be a subject like a farmstead or a landscape image that will sort of attract my attention. I guess Ike was one of those things. We happened to go to the same church, and whenever he'd walk into church, it looked like a person who wanted to be a drawing. And there was a church function where you brought your
Remember,
horses.
he can't talk.
Out to the country, yeah. And it was he had this old hat on,
Yeah.
and
I should get out.
you know, so I knew the moment I saw that that was going to be part of the drawings, and Ike was nice enough to pose for some photographs and some sketch sessions, and as they say in the I don't know what business, the rest is history. You know?
All right. So are these started from life, and then you use photographs for
Yeah, mainly photographs because of Ike's job and just
Sure.
the time schedules that people had. I worked quite extensively from photographs that I'd done, and as I worked through some of the sketches, initial sketches, and started doing some of the finished pieces, I started with the one at the end, and as you went through, by the third one, I was starting to have some problems just with the images of shadow with the hat and in the facial work, and then I found by the fourth one, and this one, or actually by the sixth or seventh one, I started referring to the photographs less.
Okay.
Because I was becoming much more familiar with the contours
Sure,
of Ike's face.
Sure. So I don't know if the camera's gotten a good view of this or not. Why is this one your favorite? Let me give you the mic, and I can stand up here.
Well, I think it's my favorite just because of the progression of the drawings that I did. They're as much a study of his hat as they are of his face, placement of where I put those on the finished image. And particularly like this one because of the design of the hat, placement on the positive and negative space, the sharp contrast shadow that comes across his face. And it catches the likeness probably as well as a couple of them do. Portrait work is important if you can catch the likeness. If you don't, there's not much reason to do a portrait.
Yeah. Well, they certainly have a strong presence. They're real intense.
Well, they're the most recent ones that I've done, and the next series is along this line with a different model, and I also intend to do some more of Ike.
Great.
Because of the images that I see.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear you say positive and negative space because we've been working on that at my classes at the high school. And
Well, good. Well,
the kids are coming down here Thursday, so I'm going to pound that into them.
you can use that not only with these, but also with the Wings series of the monotypes that are over there, and you have an excellent chance to do positive and negative spaces with the black and white woodcuts.
There you go. I'll
And if
make them
you'd-
watch the TV show.
And if you'd like, I'd leave the block so you can use the block
Oh, that'd be great.
as a demonstration piece. So,
Sure.
whatever.
Sounds good.
Just-
Well, let's move over to the woodcuts and see what's what.
On this side again?
Yeah, sounds
Okay.
good. Okay, we're in the woodcut section. And for those of our viewers that don't know what a woodcut is, would you describe like the kind of wood you use and the general process?
Okay, I can just
Yeah,
pick
why
up
don't you?
this block.
Yeah.
The wood that I use is a birch plywood.
Oh, really?
And I think every printmaker that I've talked to has a favorite wood that they use, a favorite process that they use. I think when I first started doing woodcuts, my parents remodeled their kitchen and used,
yeah?
guess what, birch plywood. So I had a good source of scrap pieces, and I'm used to how the wood feels, how it cuts. And the easiest illustration to show, because the block wouldn't show up very well, it's the easiest comparison is the old wood type, that the letter itself is the original surface of the block. What is not the letter, or the negative space around the letter, is cut away from the surface. So when the flat roller goes across the block, the original surface of the wood retains and the surface of the ink and is black if you're using black ink. and whatever areas have been cut away are negative dropouts on that image. And as you look at it, you can see some areas on a lot of woodcuts where you see the grain of the wood working into the image. And every person that does woodcuts has their own sort of distinctive mark. My good friend Ann Klingensmith does a lot of woodcut work in Mount Pleasant. Her style is totally different than mine. Her marks are totally different than mine. But you could recognize those across the room. I was taught by Orville Running from Decorah, Iowa, who at that time was the head of the art department at Luther College. And it's the same way with his prints. You walk into a huge gallery and I could pick out an Orville Running across the room just because of the marks and the cuts that are there.
What kind of cutters do you use? Any special?
I have a variety of them. I've used literally anything that dents the surface of the wood, anything that creates a mark. I have used nails, I have used wire brushes, I have used pocket knives, I have used a fairly expensive Swiss carving set. I have an English set, a Swiss set, a German set, bits and pieces of other ones that I found. The reality is if you buy a set of 12, there are going to be 4 or 5 that become your favorites, and you use those up, and then you buy replacements for those, and these others sort of sit waiting, wanting to come in and take their turn at the wood. But
So is this the same kind of ink you use for the monotypes?
some of it is, a lot of it is with my association with Ann and her background with an MFA in printmaking from the University of Iowa. She taught me a lot about inks, and I have really kind of upgraded the type of inks that I use. I use a black that's very similar to the black they use at the University of Iowa. I think that one comes out of Chicago, Technographics
It's
in
an
Chicago.
oil-based ink.
Yeah, it's an oil-based ink, and some of the colors are actually litho inks that I've used just to give the vibrance. I used to use a transparent medium and oil colors, and while they worked all right, the colors never stayed quite as vivid, never stayed quite as strong, and I don't think ultimately were quite as stable as the litho inks. And I just like the feel that they have.
Do you have a separate block for each color, or do you use a subtractive process?
I've done both. I think additively by adding more blocks. And Anne, again, I've shared a lot of studio time with her, does a lot of reductive work. And try as I might, I cannot think reductively, and try as she might, she cannot think additively. I was taught as an additive printmaker. Although this print, particular one and a couple of others, I have reduced the blocks, but almost in an additive way, if that makes sense. It's a process I don't understand.
It's cornrows. Some really nice texture there in the foreground. It's looks like a field that's been harvested. The sunset here is called Last Light, a woodcut. And if I'm correct in what he says, each color took a separate wood block. The bottom woodcut here is entitled Anna's Farm. This woodcut is entitled Callid Sun, Frozen Earth. Kind of an interesting horizontal format. Okay, a woodcut is a form of printmaking that goes back to the Middle Ages. They were originally used for illustration of books and for cheap public distribution of like holy images and so forth, saints and famous people of the day. At any rate, the modern way of labeling a print is to put the title in the lower left-hand corner, and then in the middle you see 2 numbers, and this one's 49/50. That means it's the 49th image pulled from an edition of 50, then the artist's signature and the date. And these are usually signed in pencil in the border outside of the image, although some artists do sign in the plate or in the block and then sign an original signature for each print as well.
The monotype process is quite old. It's been done on glass, been done on metal. Degas, Monet, a lot of people tested images or ideas with monotypes. And working from the plexiglass, you can run ink onto the plate with a brayer. Just roll it on like you would for inking any other plate. You can put it on with a brush, you can put it on with your hand, you can manipulate with your hands or brushes or wiping it with rags, doing a variety of different techniques to the surface. And historically, monotypes are done to combine the process of painting and printmaking. And I had done several with Ann Klingensmith and not only her studio, but my studio, as well as taking classes at Iowa Wesleyan College in Mount Pleasant. And the process intrigued me a great deal. I like monotyping. It's sort of seductive. It's very fast, and you can see results very quickly. And my friend John Wilson from Wellman was rather intimidated by the ink on the plates and wanted to draw us very quickly, very fast. And so Ann said, do a process by where you can just draw. We'll combine drawing and printmaking instead of painting and printmaking. So she said, you take a plate, totally ink it with the chosen ink that you want, a background, and I chose black. And you cover the surfaces as evenly and smoothly as possible, and then very carefully take a piece of dry drawing paper and lay that dry drawing paper very lightly down on the surface of that ink plate, realizing that from now on, whatever you touch on that plate is going to pick up ink from that plate. And so with that, if you can envision a larger plate, you just draw that image, and as that image was completed, when it was lifted off, you had your drawing, and of course all the positive areas where there was pressure from the pencil produces a piece that looks like this, obviously in reverse, but having a very different feeling, sort of looks kind of like a charcoal painting or a drawing, but not really, and was a much more permanent image than with charcoal. We did about 3 or 4 of those just to play with it, to see what it did, and so this was a litho ink, a black litho, or this was actually a block printing ink. Nice sticky right out of the can ink.
Doesn't rub off like sharp.
Oh no, when it's dry, it's very permanent. And so we'd done about 3 of these, and one day I'd pulled one off, and we were looking at this image to say, well, this is the finished artwork, and we sat it down on one of the easels and proceeded to get ready to clean the plate. And so as we moved the plate from where it had been sitting, being plexiglass, the light came up through it, and you saw this wonderful sort of ghost image that was there. And I was like, well, I think I like the way this looks. So let's print this just to see what it was. Obviously, what I had as a print then was sort of a negative of the drawing that had been done, because wherever that pressure had made the black marks, by lifting that ink off of the plate, once that paper was taken away, the ink was taken away with it. So you had less ink on that particular area. For me, it then was a logical transition, because on the woodcuts, I see those negative spaces as I cut. They're backwards to start with, as I cut on the block, and you're making a white mark as you cut the wood away. So it was logical that when I drew with a pencil, I was, instead of drawing a positive line, in my mind I was drawing a negative or white line. And so with that in mind, you simply change the way you think as you draw. So imagining this as an inked plate and the paper laid on top of it, now the drawing itself looks odd because I'm drawing negatively in my mind. So wherever I draw here and heavily build up pencil line and pressure, and especially here, then that's actually white. The darker you make it, the whiter it becomes, because you're still lifting ink off of that. And so as you then carefully peel the surface away from the ink plate, the resulting reversed pressure image also looks very negative. And if you put that in contrast underneath the actual image itself, you can see that both the lifted drawing and the final monotype image are the same image, except where one is white, the other is black, and where one is black, the other is white. And the reason for this is that both of them ultimately face the plate. This faces the plate as it's being done, it's taken away, and then the clean dampened paper faces the plate again to make the final image. So, and it's a process that is as fun and as fast as it is maddening. For every image that is in the show, probably 6 didn't work. 2 or 3 die in the drawing process, or you forget and you rest your hand on that paper as you draw, and of course as you move that hand back and forth, or you lean over and something falls out of a pocket, or your glasses fall off, that wherever that pressure hits that paper, it's going to lift ink. And some of them work very well, others are just absolutely awful. I've found that you need absolutely clean and dry paper, absolutely new and uncut ink, and if you do one and you clean the plate before you put ink back on it, you have to take the mineral spirits completely off with denatured alcohol and have a very dry plate, because just that film of dry mineral spirits or mineral spirits will actually soften that ink again. It makes it just a little softer, and the image will not be as crisp and clear.
Can you get several images?
No.
You got
Once you've taken it, you remove probably 80 to 90% of the ink from the plate. And you can run a second one, and it's sometimes very interesting. It's a real, almost ghost-like image of what you had, but the most intense area would probably be, this area right here would be as dark as it is in comparison to the harsh black that's there.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think you mentioned that at the very beginning. This is a monotype.
And results in a single image, or mono, one type or image. There are ones that are called monoprints. Monoprinting can be done with this same process, but the plate is usually scored or marked, etched, if you will, or scratched in a manner that you can do some type of re-inking to make an addition.
That's the difference. 'Cause
Yeah.
I just thought the terms were interchangeable.
Well, honestly, I did too, to start with, and was corrected by Ann, who said no. Monoprints actually can be done in short editions, and I've seen some of them, and a lot of times the scratched or engraved qualities will be inked very much like an etching. Black ink will be put on, or colored, one color of ink, and that surface will then be wiped down, leaving some of that ink in those areas, and then other chosen areas by the artist are then colored, hand colored, and the addition will not be consistent. It won't be as consistent as a woodcut edition should be, and usually they're very small editions. I don't think I've seen one more than about a dozen, whereas a monotype is resulting just one print and or one image. And some of the landscapes that I've done in the past have gone through the press 4 to 8 times, and each time adding colors or adding textures to it. So people say, well, then are there 8 prints? No, that individual image just happened to go through 8 different times, adding colors and areas of shape and form, and you still just get one image. But it sometimes can go very fast. Monotype printing is, like I said, it's very seductive because it's fast and you get to see kind of immediate results.
Now, I noticed your plexiglass was beveled around the edge, just like you would do a copper plate.
Mm-hmm.
You just use a rasp, or how do you?
Actually, you can use a rasp. The easiest thing to do is to get a nice piece of sheared metal, nice flat steel, or you can use glass. I would prefer to use just the steel, or even the little tools that you get to score and break plexiglass. If you use that back flat edge and just draw it flatly across the edge.
Like a draw knife.
Well, not exactly. You want to have the surface. I'll use a comb as an example. Imagining this was a piece of plexiglass, the edge would be kept almost vertical, like you would a scraper for removing varnish or something, and holding it at that angle. and you feel that nice sort of grating sound as it lifts the little curls of plastic off of it. And the reason that's done is the same reason that it's done in etching, because the paper is a different type of paper than used for woodcuts. It's a good rag content paper. I'll use a lot of Reeves BFK. I like that paper. It's nice, thick, resilient paper. It'll soak in water for about anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, be taken out, put between blotters, blotted down, and so it's hopefully soaked all the way through. If you did not do that and you were printing with a lot of pressure, like an etching, then you would simply, the shape of your plate would stencil right through that paper. You'd cut it out very nicely, probably, or make a nice cut in part of the paper, and possibly damage the compression blankets between the bed or the roller and the image.
So with the plexiglass, you have to be concerned about that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Any sharp edge with that, as you increase that pressure, becomes not necessarily sharper, but certainly increases the ability to shear that paper off, and so that's saves a lot of problems.
Okay, do we have time for some more?
In the hand, and was an Absarouk. The majority of images that I do are from historic photographs. Many of them are in the collection of the Smithsonian from their Bureau of American Ethnology. I like those because they are tend to be less poised or less posed than a lot of the ones from individual photographers. The whole premise was to take the images that existed as historic record and alter them by combining initially raptor wings and combining them all into a design problem that placed them in a variety of different ways on the surface. Many hands is simply from the beaded design of the hands that was on the individual in the photograph.
That wasn't actually his name?
No. Many of these are just titles that I've given them. Gull Before the Darkness. Gull was Sitting Bull, Little Bighorn. Later was in Wild West show and died as a result of poisoning, a weight loss elixir that contained a little too much arsenic. And Gull Before the Darkness is before his death or before the darkness. Sky Dancer is one of the earlier pieces. Sky Dancer was actually loon wings, and if you look closely, the feathers coming up off of the head or the outline of the head of the loon as they sort of preen up on the lake surface.
I like the way the fan kind of flows into the wing.
And that was part of the feeling that you get. You kind of got used to what the line looked like, because the texture of the paper and the intensity of the drawn line didn't look as a sharp edge, and I liked the sort of electric quality of it. Same thing as seen in Father-Son, where the wing is black instead of treated as light, and a lot of the lines are very soft and almost electric on the robe and off of the headdress.
So do you draw with the Reeves BFK as well as pull the print?
I draw with that just because I like the surface that it gives, the quality of line that it produces, and I like that little extra texture that exists from that paper. Four Standing Men was just simply a design placement of the four. In fact, I've done 3 different images of that same idea.
Anytime? Okay. We have recent prints and drawings by Lenny Moore, and he's from Mount Pleasant. The show is opening today, October the 8th, and it goes through Sunday, October the 22nd. The show is featuring prints and drawings, pencil drawings, which are quite detailed. We have gallery hours of Sunday from 2 to 4, Monday through Thursday from 6:30 to 8:30, and then again on Saturday from 2 to 4. And those are the hours that the gallery will be open during the show, which is again through October the 22nd. We hope you come and see it and enjoy it. Thank you.